Welcome into the Slate, everybody. It is Monday, April 4th, 2022. We are a DraftKings show that will take you up until just about the 6 o'clock hour. Brendan Glasheen, joined by DraftKings content specialist, college basketball follower. He does a great job with our coverage over at DraftKings and on the DraftKings Sportsbook, Julian Edlow. He will join me for the first portion of the show, and then Jeff Ulrich will hop in and get ready for the Masters. So we can't ignore that the national championship game is tonight between North Carolina and Kansas in New Orleans. Julian, good to see you. Thanks for making some time today.
Yeah, you left grilled chicken critique off of my list of accomplishments there. I also like to judge people based off their grilled chicken tweets.
Yeah.
As another one of my expertises, I guess.
Very nice. Thank you for that. Okay, so moving on. Kansas tonight is a 4-point favorite. You've got an article written up on the DraftKings playbook. You've got your best bets listed. We can go through each of those. Just how about we'll start with this? Just your general thoughts on the game, take away from the weekend, and how the weekend, the Final Four, how it sets up your thoughts on tonight's game.
Yeah, that's probably the best place to start.
Thank you. That's how I wanted to start the show.
Yeah, nope, good thinking. And it's also, I haven't bet a side in this game yet. Now, I did write up Kansas -4. I do think that's the right side. And I wrote up the first half line, which I probably feel a little bit better about. And I know that we're in agreement there. So, first of all, thoughts on the weekend. Kansas did exactly what I thought they were going to do. Kansas it hasn't been a good tournament for me overall. Kansas was my biggest play of the tournament. And that got through. Villanova just too thin, lack of size, not enough bodies. Kansas too good. And that played out pretty much wire to wire. Nova made a little fight for its life in the second half for a second and fizzled back out. UNC Duke lived up to all the hype, obviously. I didn't bet a side in that one. And then at halftime said that this feels too much like Duke and bet Duke, and obviously was wrong. UNC dug deep again, played spoiler again. Dumb to add that Duke one because I was said all week there's no reason UNC can't just spoil the party twice, and that's exactly what they did. So, but take that and set up for tonight. Rest doesn't really matter, but yeah, Kansas had the earlier game, more of a stress-free double-digit win. So more time to relax, then kick back, watch the second game, scout. So I like that angle for Kansas. And then I like, in terms of the Kansas side, that UNC had to go, whole game, comeback win, emotional victory over a rival. That's the biggest win in Carolina Duke history for either side, obviously. UNC to get a win to go to the title game and end Coach K's career. It doesn't get bigger than that. So maybe a little bit of a hangover spot, a slow spot for UNC, not to mention Bacot rolled an ankle pretty good. He came back and played, but that obviously swelled up on Sunday, and we'll see what it looks like today. So Carolina's 5-0 ATS in the tournament. They've been awesome lately, but I don't know how you can back them tonight. It's Kansas or pass.
It's been moving, 4.5 is the highest it's reached, but right now it's at 4 on the DraftKings Sportsbook. 151.5 is the total. Yeah, you laid it out pretty nicely there. I think, we found out the Justin Moore injury for Villanova is a real thing. So I know Baycott's going to play in this game tonight, but an injury at this stage of the season is real. These guys have played a ton of games, and you consider each of their runs. They didn't have long runs. These teams in the more so Carolina didn't have a long run than in the ACC tournament, but right. Definitely a factor. So I agree with you. I think Kansas' first half is a good idea because I just think fresher legs is a good point. Now, what I'm curious about is the total. It's set at 151.5. You have two teams, according to Ken Palm, that are inside the top 40 in defensive rating for the season, but you still like an over.
I do like the over. I think this is very similar to the Carolina Duke over, which I played at 151, almost an identical number. And it got there late in the 81-77 final. The defensive metrics are great, but more important is probably pace and skill. And these teams both get up and down. Kansas just scored 81 points against Villanova in their slowest paced game in 5 years. Villanova tried to do exactly what it wanted to do. Obviously, even if they were healthy, they would have tried to slow it down against Kansas. They beat Houston 50-44, and without more, they had to, because they had no depth and lost another shooter, wing defender. So Villanova slowed it down as much as they could slow it down, and Kansas still scored almost 1.4 points per possessions and scored 81 points in their fewest possessions in 5 years. So they have the shooting, the size, the skill to put up points. And I think both of these teams are going to get out and run. So I just think it's a very similar matchup to the Duke UNC matchup that we saw go over 151. So I'm going back to what I think is a very similar play here. Both teams getting up and down, both teams very capable of shooting the three.
Yeah, and as I say, both top 40 defenses, they're both top 20 offenses. UNC ranks 18th, Kansas is 6th. And to your point about pace, Kansas at 65, 65th in the nation in terms of tempo, and then UNC 40th. So yeah, we could get an up and down game. How about some props? You do, while you are likely on the Kansas side, you are, and you're acknowledging an over. So you do like the fact that like UNC's two leading players here have been Manic, the transfer from Oklahoma, and Caleb Love, who made the huge three at the end of the game. Now, the odds have moved since you wrote this up, but you're in on Manic over 3-point prop tonight, over 2.5.
Yeah, I've played Manic a couple of these last games and wrote him up for the Final Four game. It just keeps hitting. So, like, what I would say is if you're a bigger better and the 150 juice is probably just too much to eat, you can maybe look at Manic points since it ties in with the game total going over. But if you're a casual bettor and you're doing this for entertainment and you're betting $10-20 or whatever, I don't know if the juice is really going to kill you. Manic has gone over this at all 5 games in the tournament. He's made at least 3 threes. He's now 19 for 40 behind the arc in the tournament. And if you go back one more game to the last Duke game of the season, 24 of his last 50 he's made. And he's gone over this mark in 6 games in a row, and whatever that is, with an average of 4. So, like, more realistically, this should it's too high. It wouldn't be priced at this, but more realistically, it would be like a 3.5 at even money, at which point I wouldn't bet it. But he keeps going over. He's shooting really well. This is a game that should get a lot of shots up and some good pace. He didn't hit one in the first half against Duke. He hit all of them in the second half and got there. It's just been on too good of a roll, and that's why the juice kind of ran away again. But he should get there.
So you're not on a side yet, but what would it take for you to get to a side?
Just the game getting closer and wanting to take a side. I don't know.
If you had to do it now,
there's no doubt in my mind that Kansas is the right side. What's holding me back is how well UNC is playing, and that I know they have the talent. Like, they have the talent to win this game. They obviously do. They've beaten Baylor. They've beaten Duke. They can win this game. So it's Kansas. It's Kansas's toughest test for sure. Like, if you look at the rest of the road, Creighton, Providence, Miami, a dinged up Villanova, this is their hardest game. It truly is. So this will be their hardest test. If Baycott isn't right, though, like, that adds a lot to Kansas being the right side. He was, a guy I thought of as he didn't win it. The Wake Forest dude won it, but the runner-up for ACC Player of the Year. If he's not 100%, that's going to be a big deal. So ultimately, just the spot for Kansas and the letdown spot for UNC. I know it's really hard to say letdown spot in the national title game, but the way that this weekend has worked out, it almost turns into that for UNC. Kansas is just deeper and potentially playing a little bit better right now. So they're if you're betting this game, they're the side. I feel more comfortable on first half, which is where I have a little bit so far. But yeah, Kansas is, I can't bet UNC in this game, put it that way.
Right now, if you want to look into Kansas minus 2.5 on the DraftKings Sportsbook, it's at minus 110. The Carolina
first half
spot,
line, yeah.
yeah, Carolina juice to minus 120, which we talked about before we went live. What would make you suspect that is the case? I mean, of course, I guess it's being bet on, but does that lead you to believe that are we maybe not on the right side of this? Like, why are folks? I guess Carolina's just riding this heater, and folks can't ignore that.
Yeah, I mean, they're coming off they have some momentum to ride. Yeah, you could look at it that way. I think there's a lot more going on there than I think there's a lot more going on there that could slow them to start this game than could, keep them hot to start this game off. But yeah, the 120 there, I think Carolina just took some money and it hasn't quite adjusted because Kansas should be minus 105 or even money there. I don't think it'll move to 2, but you might get a little bit better price on Kansas first half as it gets closer, it looks like, at 2.5. I'm not sure.
Roy Williams certainly won't be a loser tonight since he coached both programs, so that'll be fun to watch in New Orleans.
He's been wearing his Carolina gear all tournament, though.
That's true.
You got to assume he's going to be in Carolina gear.
Recency bias is a real thing, even when it comes to coaches and Power 5 programs. You can find Julian Edlow's work on dknation.draftkings.com over on the DraftKings playbook. I'm sure you'll have more coming out later as the game approaches. You might have a little more, right? Is that fair?
I'll have some stuff on Twitter, but yeah, I mean, the article from today is up. That's what you want to read. It's got the 3 plays we talked about, the Kansas side, the over, and the Manic prop, as well as a link to the mystery boost that we're running on DraftKings Sportsbook. If you want to partake in that. I don't know what it is because it's a mystery.
Before we let Julian Edlow go, let's transition. Welcome in Jeff Ulrich, the fantasy grind, as we call him. Jeff, Julian has a play tonight for the Masters. You don't have to turn your camera on, but you can bark at him. And Julian, why don't you tell Jeff what you're going to bet for the Masters and see what he thinks?
So as the king of negativity, I don't see how, like, DraftKings already put prices up to make miss cut. Tiger's a pick 'em, minus 115 each way. I don't you got to bet him to miss the cut. I'm sorry, everyone can hate me, but is that not the play? Is Jeff here?
I'm here. I'm here. There's nothing wrong with betting against Tiger to miss the cut, but from an odds perspective, man, you should bring those up, Glash. I'm allowed to turn my camera on now. So here
go
we
ahead, please.
The full meal deal. There's better odds. I think there's better odds. I mean, look, I'm not.
Oh, tell me.
I'm not gonna.
I don't.
I'm not gonna
Jeff,
make.
I don't bet.
There it is, right there, Jeff. Minus 150.
No, look,
to miss the
you
cut.
set me up perfectly for me to tell you how dumb you are for betting against Tiger Woods, but I'm not going to do that. It's perfectly reasonable.
Do. He makes fun of my chicken every week. This is why I wanted to do this.
Yeah, Glash, you're an idiot though. We're supposed to make fun of you. So before I get out of here, I don't bet golf, Jeff, so I don't know. But like I feel like Tiger's going to be overpriced in this tournament because the casual bettor wants to bet him, and he's coming off so much to like make the cut at the Masters. It seems like a good spot to sell, but if there's a better bet to fade Tiger, tell me how to do that.
I don't know if there is a better bet to fade Tiger. The problem with getting him to miss the cut is that it's a smaller field. Like, there's 91 players, and the top 50 in ties make the cut. Like, he doesn't have to play well to make the cut. You know what I mean? And Tiger Woods very good at managing the top
50. It's the top 50 and ties. So if you're tied for 50, essentially.
Exactly. So, like
what would you put his like over under finishing position at?
Oh God, man. I mean, like, it's so variable. I mean, I have no idea because he hasn't played competitive golf. That's
put your content behind a paywall. Make him pay for this.
No, but it's so variable, and that's why I'm saying I don't think you're actually I don't think it's actually like that great a bet, and mainly because I think there's better odds you're getting with just other players like to miss the cut. I mean, like Tiger Woods has played Augusta a million times, and he hasn't missed the cut here much, and he's come in off a short rest before too. Like, he's very good at managing the course. I will not be shocked if he finds a way to manage his way around the course. You can go down though, and you can get players who, like we're looking like Sergio Garcia, who really hasn't hit the ball that great at plus 210 to miss a cut. He absolutely blows up. So it's not so much that I don't like fading Tiger. I think that's fine, but when you look at the odds, like you're really not getting what I would call great odds. And Cameron Young, plus 160 to miss the cut. This dude's playing Augusta for the first time. These greens could absolutely eat him up. I would rather make bets like that.
But I could fade him.
What's that?
I said, I don't know who he is, but I could fade him. Sounds great. I hate Cameron Young now.
He's the Brendan Glasheen of the Masters field.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's my golf segment.
I don't.
Yeah, we're gonna let Julian go now, Jeff.
It's a good segue. It was perfect. I mean, I think this is a good place to start with. Anyways,
right.
yeah. I don't even know who's playing tonight in the college basketball game. So
yes,
perfect.
Yes. You had to guess who's playing. Yes.
Go UNLV. I guess that's my pick.
Wow, straight out of the 90s.
Right, not the LV. Okay, Julian, you can go. Thanks, pal.
All right, good golf talk, guys.
Hey, it was good to see you.
It's a good segue.
Yep.
Good
Anyone
work.
hungry? Grill that chicken up.
Yep, that'll be out later, before the game
Looking
starts
forward
too.
to that content.
Yep. Thank you. Can you give me 30 seconds? He's like the best and the worst at like the same time. You know that? Like here, I try to segue Jeff into the show in a seamless way. Like, all right, hey, Julian was talking Tiger, wants to give his thoughts and see if Jeff has a thought on it. Okay, cool. This will be fun. Jeff starts trying to give him a reasoning, and then he can't help himself. Like Jeff talk. If you ask Jeff a question, let Jeff talk. And he's barking. He's interrupting you. Like, do you want his thoughts or not?
Anyway. No. He let me get my point across.
Eventually,
I think Julian just wanted to emphasize that he doesn't bet golf that much. And I mean, like I said, I don't hate the idea of fading Tiger Woods. He hasn't played a competitive round in over a year. But like again, it's minus 115. We're not getting plus money here. Like this isn't. Like DraftKings is kind of privy to what's going on. We're not getting like prime Tiger Woods. But like it's a limited field event, man. I mean, this course plays a little tough. I mean, Tiger knows these greens. Even the way he won the event in 2019, he managed his way around the course and he knows how to do that. So everyone coming in and just expecting Tiger to be like, oh yeah, like he won't be able to break 80. Like, you may be disappointed. And I'm not saying he's going to get in contention or win, but all he has to do is finish in the top 50 over the first two rounds. And there's a lot of bad players in this event. And like the Larry Mizes or I don't even like the past champions, Mike Weir, guys like that. Right. So, I mean, I think if you're making a miscut bet or a miscut parlay this week, you look to some of these dudes who maybe haven't played here before, maybe coming in with suspect form, and you go there rather than trying to pick on Tiger because you're not really getting the greatest odds to do it. And, it's Tiger, man. Like this guy does superhuman things. I don't know why you want to bet against him. Yeah, I'm not saying to bet him in the outright market or something. I'm just saying I don't really think these are the odds that you need here to take a miscut bet on Tiger.
Jeff Ulrich joining us now. Of course, Julian is gone. Jeff does a great job covering golf for us over on the DraftKings Playbook. We'll have you until about 6 o'clock. So if you have Masters questions, there's a big contest on DraftKings. So if you're into DFS, we can get into that. We'll have Masters coverage all week on the Sweat. Also on the Slate Wednesday when the golf crew is here the night before the tournament begins. And I'm sure there'll be live coverage from the likes of Jeff and Reed Fowler on our social channels and all that good stuff. Here's another question, and I don't mean to put you on the spot like Julian did so rudely, in my opinion. So say, because Tiger has put out there, it's a game time decision, right? So yeah. I'm assuming, and maybe this is a basic question. I'm an idiot, like you guys, like Julian said. If indeed he does not participate, but you put that bet in, the bet will just void, obviously, right? Say he tries to play in the first round and he goes, oh, my neck or oh, my legs, and then he's out. Does the bet void?
I don't have the exact stipulations in front of me for the DraftKings Sportsbook. So please don't take this as, Bible or what happens, but usually the bet would void. But please, like if you're going to make that bet, yeah, you should. And you're worried about that, check, because I don't know. I can't give a straight answer to that. Generally, if he doesn't hit one tee shot, he wouldn't be in the field and it would void. But I don't know the actual stipulations and the rules. This is what you have to do when you're making a bet on any sports book. You got to look. So do that. But yeah, if he does hit a shot and then withdraw, that's a different thing. But yeah, if he pulls out before, generally it just wouldn't count. It would just be a void bet. So I don't know.
Again, and you know why I'm only and look, I think DraftKings historically has done like right by the people, but he's a pretty big name, and that's why I just think it's worth mentioning. Like, I would keep an eye on news, and we say that about every sport we do coverage for. Like, monitor news. But
the other part of this is, I mean, I'm I'm like 99.999% sure he's going to be playing. So, that's that. But it's worth to think about for sure.
Different question. I mean, say he plays around, and you know how guys oftentimes will withdraw.
Yep, like in play.
Say he withdraws after the first round or something because he can't finish it out. That's my question.
I mean, yeah. I don't know. I don't have the exact rules. I would assume that would account for a miscut because he's already in the field. But again, I don't know the stipulations. Okay. So email DraftKings support.
Okay, good. Sorry. And maybe I was just curious because it's a big thing with him. He's like you said, we mentioned this 1,000 times, and you've probably talked about it since last week when the reports started coming out. Like, there's a possibility Tiger is he's going to try and play, but there could be some problems here because it's a pretty significant injury he's returning from. What else do you want to hit on? Now, I wanted to follow up about Rory because I know he didn't have a great week at Valero, but are you still high on Rory for this for the Masters?
I mean, look, Rory is. I think is super interesting to talk about this week. I mean, he burned everybody in DFS last week, and I think the overall community, in the sense that you've got Rory McIlroy coming in off a missed cut. We haven't had a player coming in off a missed cut win this event since 2009 with Angel Cabrera. Although Bubba Watson kind of did it in 2014 because he withdrew from the Arnold Palmer after shooting 83. So it's happened twice over the past like 15 years. It's not super common, but like either you were into Rory for this event last week. There's a couple different camps you fall in with Rory. Either you were really into him for this event before the Valero, and the Valero didn't really change your mind about anything because you already liked what he had done before. And, you were just betting him, and now you just got a better number. So that's awesome. You were on the fence about him about the Valero, and either you've let that change your mind to now you're not playing him, or you were on the fence about him before and now you're getting a better number and you're saying, okay, well, maybe I'll take some risk and play him, or you just weren't into him at all. And you're just still off him. So, there's a couple different camps with Rory. I'm of the first camp. I like his chances this year. I think he's played really well since the Ryder Cup last year. He's got a win. He's been like pretty solid around the green, which is really good for Rory. And the ball striking was coming around before the Valero. So I'm not letting 2 rounds at some quirky Greg Norman course like get me off Rory McIlroy. I'm quite happy to take the better odds. We got plus 2,000 now. He's plus 1,600 before the Valero last week. Why not, man? I mean, look, he's top 10 here a million times. Rory's 32 now. He's at that prime stage. He's dominated this course at times. He just hasn't quite put all the pieces together to grab a win in the right year. So I like it. The pressure's off. Rory's won 3 times, Glash. 3 of his last 6 wins on the PGA Tour have come after a missed cut. He likes it when the pressure's off. And the pressure's off right now. So I like him. I like starting betting this week at the plus 2,000 range or higher. And Rory is the guy I would start with.
Yeah, Rory ended both rounds, 1 over par, then 2 shots off the line for Valero. Was the first cut he missed since last July. But to your point, it sets up well for him because it's a non-pressure spot, and he is going for the career Grand Slam at the Masters this weekend. You were on the sweat this morning? I'm assuming you were. You were? Okay. So what else from Masters Week do you feel from, maybe we can start DFS as well? What are some other things that you definitely want to hit on here in terms of
just in terms of like the course and just the event and what, maybe we should be looking for. It's going to play. I think it's going to play tough again this year. We had a winning score 10 under last year. We've got a cold forecast. Like it's supposed to be like low 60s on the weekend, the highs. So, I think it's going to create tougher conditions. Of course, it's going to play longer. Also got wind coming up, man. Like the gusts in potentially up to 25 miles per hour on Friday. And that's a big thing for DFS. I can't emphasize this enough. Watch the forecast on Friday PM because If the wind gets up in the afternoon and the course firms up, those guys are going to have a really tough time. And I'm really waiting for the tee times tomorrow just before I make any final decisions. Like I bet Rory, and I've got a couple other guys in mind I'll mention here, but I want to see the tee times first. I really, really don't want to invest too heavily in anyone with a late Friday tee time right now. Now that could change too. We're only at Tuesday. Got to check it again tomorrow, but there's definitely, I think, an advantage in keeping a track of the forecast this week. So expecting a higher scoring event. By higher scoring, I mean, I think we'll see 10 under or worse as the winning score. I think you could see like 7 or 8 under. The course has been lengthened in a couple spots too. The 11th, the 15th. The 15th is typically one of the biggest scoring holes. It's an easy par 5. It's going to be tougher. The second shot there is going to be longer, and it's just going to bring more trouble into play. So, yeah, I think you're going to set up for just a tougher scoring event. And if the forecast does get really windy and cold, you could see this potentially like just turn into a bit of a grind fest, like a bit of a US Open, maybe 5 under. So I don't mind it. I like it. I like when events get like this. I don't like it when the Masters is like minus 20 or something. It just feels like one person always runs away with it when it's like that. So
if I remember correctly, at least the start of the tournament, Matsuyama won it last year, the weather was cooperative and then it wasn't. Did we get rain in the weekend? I can't remember now. I'm trying to recall.
That is, sorry, I'm closing my door in the middle of the show. That is what happened last year. Yeah, Justin Rose opened with a 7 under par, and then it got tough. And Hideki was like the only one who kind of kept scoring. He got the 10 under, and he almost blew it at the end. But
right,
yeah, he held it together. And again, Hideki last year, he went 1 over on the par 3s and par 4s combined. He was 1 over, but he was 11 under on the par 5s. So the par 3s and par 4s, he actually shot over par, but he took advantage of the par 5s, and that's what you have to do at Augusta. You have to manage yourself around the par 4s and the par 3s. You got to avoid those doubles. You got to take your medicine if you get a bogey, and you got to make it back on the par 5s. You've got to take advantage of those holes, and the guys who know how to manage those holes, they win here, man. And that's why experience matters. Because look, Tiger in 2019. I mean, he wasn't smashing it the longest, but he grabbed those birdies on those par 5s down the stretch. He hit one good shot on a par 3 and he won. And it was just like, and nobody else was doing that. Everyone else was just screwing up their opportunities. So that's what you got to do. And yeah, it's the type of like veteran player with good approach game, good savvy around the greens that you got to be targeting here.
How about, so we talked to Cam Smith a bit. I think this is when Julian definitely checked out. He's like, I don't know who that is. Or Cam Young, not Cam Smith, Cam Young. Yeah. That's when Julian started all right, Jeff, I just wanted to tell you my pick and get out of here because I have to go do a VSiN hit. How do we find value for the Masters and more specifically for the contest? And we can obviously use the contest to help us navigate the sportsbook too.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, it's a Masters week. It's a majors week. The pricing is condensed. The most expensive player we have is 11,000, and everyone's just a little bit cheaper. We've got names like, Tony Finau, 8,100, Matthew Fitzpatrick, 7,700. So, each range is going to have players like Fitzpatrick that's going to just, suck ownership up. Fitzpatrick has played really good of late. He's got some course history. He hasn't missed a cut here in like 5 years. And, we've got other players. Cam Smith at 9,900. He's finished like T10, T2 here the last two seasons. He's going to be chalk. And so is Justin Thomas, who's played really well. So, each range is going to have that. And then you've just got to think, we're entering the Millie Maker. What's the good chalk? Who do I want to ride with? And then who do I want to complement that player with? So, Reed Fowler threw up the winning millionaire lineup from last year. It had some chalky players. It had like I think a 40% owned Paul Casey and like a 30% owned Jordan Spieth. So, you don't have to avoid all the chalky names. If you like Justin Thomas this week, and I kind of do. I mean, I think Justin Thomas is a very solid chance. Then start with Justin Thomas, because you don't have to get super crazy. You don't need like a 0.5% player. You don't need to roster like Bernhard Longer just to make your lineup a little different. Like that's not going to work. And you can eat the chalk with a couple top players, and you should, because these guys are going to be chalk for a reason. Like, Justin Thomas has gained strokes on approach in like 12 straight starts, playing great. He is a little bit undervalued. And Cameron Smith's a good young player. I would worry about more Cameron Smith than I would Justin Thomas between those two. Like if I'm picking one to fade, it's definitely Smith. But you don't necessarily have to take my advice there either. You could even roster both and just try and differentiate down below. So lots of names, lots of guys available at each range that are very playable, down to like 6,500. And, just don't get fancy play syndrome is what I like to call it. Take the guys who are setting up as good plays and, mix in a couple guys who you think might be just flying a little bit under-owned or just the public are getting off. And I got some names, that you can start with there too.
Cam Smith, and something that I've noticed here, a trend I'm noticing in your analysis is you really do, and I'm just observing here. It sounds like you very much care about history, like at this event. Like that's a big deal. History at Augusta. It's a course that has its challenges, but also like it plays mind games because of how hyped it gets, and it's the biggest event of the year.
You have to manage your way around Augusta. Like you have to know when to be aggressive. You have to know where to miss. You have to know, when it's a good time to just just take your medicine. And that's why I bring up the fact with Tiger, he's just so good at doing that. And he knows how to do it. He basically won the green jacket, just managing his way around the course in 2019 and just kind of waiting everyone out. So yeah, experience matters, but it's not the be all end all either. Good young players come in here and play well every year. Will Zalatoris did it. It still comes down to playing golf. You've got to hit shots, you've got to execute, right? If a guy's executing, he's probably going to play well here. Maybe he'll miss a few putts that he shouldn't, and maybe he'll screw up around the greens more. But he's probably going to get through the cut for you because he's playing so well. So you want the blend of both. You want the blend of experience and guys who are playing really well. And it doesn't have to be a ton of experience either. Sometimes it's just a few starts is good enough. I mean, we saw Danny Willett win here off having 2 starts, one made cut at Augusta. And, Patrick Reed didn't have the biggest track record when he won recently either. So yeah, it's good, but it's not the be all end all when you're looking at recent form and versus course history.
Who are some other names you want to throw at us that you have
let's dive into the field a little bit. I mean, we talked about Cam Smith and Justin Thomas off the top. Like I said, Justin Thomas, I think he's getting close. I mean, he said to himself he's getting close, and everything looks to be firing. The approach game's ticking up. The short game's been pretty sharp. If his putter shows up this week, I could definitely see him being in the mix. I want to see what side of the draw he's on before I make a final decision. But yeah, Justin Thomas versus Cam Smith. I'll take Justin Thomas. I think, again, with Rory there at 10,000, I think that's just the perfect pivot off of Cam Smith. I'll just play Rory. I mean, it's, when it comes down to it, it's Rory versus Cam Smith. Cam Smith's great, but it's Rory. So I really don't have a problem fading that. Nothing against Cam Smith. He's great. He'll probably sink a million putts and make me look stupid for saying anything bad about him. But that's the way I'm kind of looking at those two. Down below, and again, you can eat some of those, those chalky plays, because I think there's players down in the 8K range, especially where you got guys like Joaquin Niemann, Tyrrell Hatton, even going down a little bit further. Well, I mean, we'll stick with that range, but I think the 8K range is going to be chock full with, and even going up to 9K, let's say between 8 and 9K with guys like Berger and Usti. You're going to get very palatable ownership levels on those guys. I'm talking 10. I don't think any of those guys are going to be cracking 15%. And you can pair them with Thomas or Smith, whoever you want to start with. And it's just going to give you a higher end player at lower ownership. So a lot of people will probably be looking at that range and trying to pay down for Fitzpatrick. I think Tony Finau gets some love now that he finally made a cut, but I like Hatton in that range and I like Niemann. Those are probably my 2 favorite plays, and Hatton especially is interesting, man. Nobody likes to play this guy in majors. All people remember when they think about Tyrrell Hatton is he gets on tilt, he yells at the ball, and he's terrible in majors. And he has missed 5 of his last 7 cuts, but he also finished T18 here last year, his best ever finish at the Masters. He's really solid putter. His approach game has been up on the uptick. He's played really well to start 2022. Hasn't won, but multiple top 5s. Really good as last time. I really like Hatton this week. That's a bet I am fully invested in too. I think he's a great top 10 bet. I think he's a player who I think if the conditions get tough, Hatton has a real chance to win this week.
Plus 450 to finish top 10.
He's top 10 in majors. He's got 5 top 10s in majors. All people remember about Haddon is the missed cuts. He's got 5 top 10 in majors since 2016. So, almost averaging 1 per year. I think those odds are fine.
All right, moving along here, just looking at Jeff's preview, which again you can find over on the DK playbook, dknation.draftkings.com. Master starting up on Thursday. We discussed off the top the Tiger Woods situation, making or missing the cut. Again, there's some news to monitor there, but look, Tiger won this thing 3 years ago, which doesn't feel like it was 3 years ago. That feels forever ago. Just knowing the pandemic and Tiger's situation. What are some other things like trends wise that you're keeping an eye out for when you decide? So of course, like you said, you're going to wait and see what matchups are. You're going to wait and see what time some tee times are for later in the week.
Yeah. I mean, we can talk about trends and the trends into the Masters are kind of funny. I mean, again, you can kind of find a hole in most of these trends. I mean, Hideki came in last year. Hideki came in with 2 missed cuts in his last 5 starts last year. Like I almost feel like people just forget about that. And we're all sort of so focused on these things like no one's won after a missed cut, or you got to have some top 20s in March or something. Like as long as the player's played solid and is showing some form and hasn't been a complete disaster, like maybe missing 3 cuts in a row or something, it's probably like you shouldn't worry too much about it. You just want a player who's got that nice blend, trending well in the ball striking, has looked sharp at times, and has some course history behind them. And the most important thing is just value when you're betting. Like Hideki was a nice value last year at plus 4,000. That's kind of why I like Hatton at plus 5,500 this year. I mean, I think that number's fine. I think you can probably find him even bigger somewhere else, but I think he's just underrated. He's put together multiple top 5 finishes. And he's 30 years old. Like he's played this venue a few times. I think if the conditions get tough, in that range, I do kind of like him. I don't mind Joaquin Niemann there at plus 6,500. I think he is. I think you just scrolled past them. Either, I mentioned Niemann, like he's got a fantastic short game, fantastic iron player. I think if the conditions stay tough, I think that favors him. He won on a tough course already in Riviera. So don't get, stretched up too much about specific trends or anything. I wouldn't be betting like debutantes to win. Like I'm not going to bet Sam Burns probably just because it's his first time playing, but other than that, you just focus on like long-term versus short-term form and look at a player you think's undervalued. And I think a couple guys who are undervalued based on the recent and long-term form are Hatton and Niemann in that range.
Our old friend Obi-Wan is in the YouTube chat. He's got a question. Bernhard Langer worth a dart throw?
He is not. He is not worth a dart throw. You don't need to play those dudes. You just don't. If you look, okay, let's go down. Let's go to the DFS side and let's tackle some guys in the 6K range because there's playable players, but I don't know how deep you necessarily want to go here. Like you can, if you really are making some tournament lineups and you want to get crazy with like some stars and scrubs, 6,300 is probably where I would start. Like with maybe a Danny Willett who, again, won here in tough conditions. He's played this event lots, obviously. And, he's certainly capable of like grinding out a decent finish. Mackenzie Hughes also probably playable there. But I think that if I was starting, I would probably say, maybe go up to like 6,500. Ryan Palmer is a player I actually wrote up this week. And I think is interesting if you're making lineups like that. Like if you're really into like a 2% owned guy, you just want to be a little bit different and maybe just throw in some, maybe making 100 lineups from the Million Maker. And you just want to throw in, a guy who's going to have like 2% ownership. I think Palmer's really interesting. He struck the ball well last week. This dude made 2 eagles and 16 birdies last year at Augusta. Like he was a fantastic play last year, just from the perspective of, because he made so many birdies and he's a really good driver of the golf ball. So he's a good par 5 scorer. He just putted like crud on the weekend at the Valero. He was actually at 10 under through 2 rounds. So I like the momentum that like Ryan Palmer's bringing in. I think at 6,500, you could see him potentially be like the highest scorer kind of the guys like at 6,700 and below. I don't hate that play for DFS. I think Bezadenhout at 6,700 also going to benefit from a tougher course. He's got a great short game. Very talented young player. I don't think many people are going to be on him. So that's kind of where I would start. I I don't really have too much love for going under 6,500 this week. I think you're just getting too fancy if you do that.
So if you start with Thomas, are you advocating? You mentioned you could eat the chalk with Thomas and Smith, or you play Thomas and a McIlroy. You're going to pay, and like you said, you get the sense that folks are going to attack that low 8K to mid 8K range, and that's when someone like Palmer could slide in nicely and make the money work.
Sorry about that. Muted myself. Palmer makes a lot of the money work, right? Like regardless of what lineup construction you're doing. So, you can certainly use two guys under there too. Like Gary Woodland's playing really well. He's been fantastic actually over his last 5 starts. He's 6,900. You can go Palmer and Woodland, and I think that's perfectly fine. So you can start with 2 players at 6K, under 7K, and leaves you with over 9K. So it's a major. Like it's a little bit of a limited field, but there's still plenty of playable players under 7K. And I think Woodland is going to be a pretty popular play when it's all said and done. But if you pair him with a guy like Palmer, and that's why I wrote up Ryan Palmer this week, because everyone knows Gary Woodland's playing well, and you don't really need me to tell you that. But if you're going to play him, like you're going to be eating some chalk. And if you want a really low owned guy to go out there with, who could potentially match him in scoring, and he was right up there. He was actually, like I said, he's leading the event last week after 2 rounds. I think Palmer is that guy. He played pretty well here last season, just made a few too many bogeys. So that's one way I would look at it. If you're looking at stars and scrubs, I think Ryan Palmer is a name to keep an eye on.
Someone in the chat here just mentioned Tom Hoge.
Tom Hoge.
Yeah. Hoge.
6,700.
Didn't know how to pronounce his name.
No, that's okay. Hoge. I like Hoge. That's how we pronounce it in Canada. Tom Hoge.
Hey man, when you're doing the National Lacrosse League, all those Canadians, you get used to the Canadians.
True. So. It's true. That's. I mean, I appreciate it. No, look, Hoagie's played well. I mean, he's really struck the ball well this year. It's his first time playing Augusta, but I think when you look at that range, like I threw out Woodland just because Gary's got the experience factor and he's played really well late. But like Brian Harmon is probably playable in that range too. I mentioned Bezuidenhout and then Hoagie. Hoagie versus Bezuidenhout is interesting. Like Hoagie's definitely struck the ball better late, but I do worry, with the conditions playing tough and it's his first year, does he just like kind of parachute out of this one? I don't know. I like Bezuidenhout slightly better just because of how this tournament's setting up. But if you're running models and you got the strokes gain tee to green stuff, Hoagie's definitely rating out a little bit better from a lot of angles. So you will miss a lot of greens at Augusta, and that's what worries me about a guy like Hoagie. He doesn't have a ton of experience here, whereas Bezuidenhout, elite around the green game, like top 10 in the world, and he's played here before. He made the cut here last year, so kind of both players are playable, but I would probably lean Bezuidenhout versus Hoagie at 6,700.
I am using Twitter.
Tom Hoge, sorry.
Hoge.
Tom Hoge.
Where am I seeing this? This was yesterday. Never mind. This isn't really newsworthy. Evan Priest, who reports for the PGA, Golf Digest for Australia's most read golf magazine, Australian Golf Digest. Excuse me. He said that Tiger looked very good yesterday in warm-ups for 20 minutes. So just now Twitter is now, like, stuff pops up and you think, oh, like, that's news. It's like, no, it was from yesterday. Twitter's got this weird algorithm thing now it's doing. It's obviously my computer listening to me talk about Tiger Woods on a show. So let me show Brendan Glasheen Tiger reports from a day old. Before we wrap up, do you want to hit on anything on the sports book that might be fun? Like someone who's just trying to leisurely get involved. Like, of course, you mentioned outright favorites. You mentioned a top 10 finisher. What else can folks get involved with for golf if they're new and they're like, all right, I want to bet the Masters. It's my first time betting golf. I want to have some fun with this. Let's look at some fun stuff in the DraftKings Sportsbook.
Yeah. So, look, you can always, if you just want to make like one bet the outright department's the funnest because if you get a player in contention down the stretch, that'll get your blood boiling on Sunday. But, a lot of people talking about the outrights already. And again, that's an easy one. You can pick out a few players. Or you can read your favorite guy. Read my article. It's up at DK Nation now. I got, mentioned a bunch of players. We mentioned Hatton. We mentioned Rory, obviously. Siwoo Kim. at I think he's plus 10,000 right now on the DraftKings Sportsbook. That's another name if you're looking for long shots. But one other thing you can do, you go to the missed cuts, like to miss the cut. Maybe you can make yourself a little parlay action. Maybe we should do that.
Yeah, you mentioned this off the top. Yeah, I'm curious about
this. Is fun. This will make your Friday way more enjoyable. Because you can throw in a few players here. You can do them to make the cut as well, and that's fine. But I like to miss the cut. Again, I think we're going to get poor weather, and you should be targeting those Friday PM tee times. And we don't know the tee times yet. I'm just going to throw out a couple names. Kevin Na, plus 180, really hasn't done anything well this year. Hasn't hit the ball well. I think plus 180 to miss the cut. That's fine. I'll take some action on that. Kevin also likes to withdraw after like 6 holes sometimes, so that's good. Who else we got here? I'll tell. Oh,
you want to go Cam Young, like you said earlier?
Yeah, actually, you know what? I don't mind that call. Cam Young. He's a really good young player, but he's cooled off a little bit.
First timer. If
his putter doesn't show up on these greens, he's gonna have a tough time around the greens. So I actually really like that call. I forgot I mentioned him. I don't hate Taylor Gooch. I don't know. Well, let's just do 3 though, because let's throw in Emerson's boy, Flash, Billy Horschel, plus 225. Billy Horschel. Emerson's on Twitter, touting golfers. Billy Horschel's his boy. Let's go over Billy Horschel's record at Augusta quickly here. It's hashtag not great. So, Billy's been more of like a decent U.S. Open player. He's played well to start the year, but at the Masters, man, T50, T38, T56, missed cut, T17, missed cut. So he's played the Masters 7 times. His best finish is a T17 from 2016. He's got 2 missed cuts over the last 6 years and a bunch of bad finishes. I think plus 225 is fine. We'll throw him. That'll be our 3-way to miss the cut parlay. Cam Young, Kevin Na, who, like I said, I don't even know if he's healthy. And then we got our boy, or Emerson's boy, Billy Horschel.
I don't know if you can parlay this though. It says, yeah.
Oh man.
It's a bummer.
Well, shoot. You know what? Just bet all 3.
Bet all 3 of them singles. Got it.
All right. Well, that stinks. I thought you could. Can you parlay the make the cuts? Try that quickly.
Yeah, well, there's a to make cut parlays.
Make the cut. Oh, okay. I see. Okay. So there's a specific section here. Well, we should have been looking at that. Anyways, I gave you 3 missed cuts I like there. So you can just take those. That's unfortunate. That would have been fun. But
it is unfortunate. And all of these are make the cut parlays. So this is all assuming these folks do well. I'm trying to find some of our names that we mentioned there. I don't see them.
Oh, here's one I like. Woods, McIlroy, Spieth, and Hovland all to make the cut. Plus 200.
Aha. Okay.
I mean, Spieth and McIlroy, I like. Yeah, I actually don't mind that one. Basically, I think you just got to worry about Woods in that one. But anyways, you asked me for something fun. The missed make cut part, I guess not parlays, but the missed make cut bets. That'll make your Friday a little more special this week.
Yeah, you mentioned Victor Hovland a few weeks ago, like before the tournament, before we were even close to the tournament, maybe a month before. So someone you were into, and of course,
I don't dislike Victor Hovland. I wouldn't bet him in the outright. I think he could potentially be someone who gets a little bit forgotten about in DFS. I think the tough conditions are fine for him. I just worry, his around the green game is probably going to bite him here eventually, like to the point where it might, just not quite get him over the hump. So Hovland and DFS, if we're getting lower ownership, fine. But I'm fine to probably avoid him for betting. I'd need a bigger number this week, I think.
Jeff Ulrich, you can find his coverage on you can find him on Twitter at the Fantasy Grind. Also over on the DraftKings playbook. If you want the URL, it is dknation.draftkings.com/playbook. And he has an article written up breaking down all things Masters, the field, the course, trends, his picks, value picks, sleeper picks, folks that have done well at the course recently, all of that good stuff from a DFS and sports betting perspective. Jeff will be back on Wednesday here on the slate with Emerson and Reed to get you ready for Masters action, which starts Thursday. And I'm sure Jeff will be chiming in as the week and the weekend begins as well. Jeff, good stuff. You'll be back on the sweat tomorrow, I would presume.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So how are you going to, this is more of a, I'm just curious. How are you going to keep like thinking of new takes on the Masters? Like, I feel like you've unloaded everything today on 2 shows. Like, how are you going to keep it? How are you going to keep it fresh?
Well, that's my producer's problem, man. I mean, they got to keep asking me new questions. I mean,
that's fair.
Look, I ultimately, I think there's a lot of different. That's the fun thing about DraftKings. So, we've got a lot of different angles. There's 3 milli makers up there, so we can always talk about strategy with that. But you can play heads up contests, cash games, and then there's the betting side of it. So honestly, there's a lot of things to discuss, and I don't think I'm going to run out of things to say because it's Masters week, man, and there's a lot of stuff to do, a lot of big contests, a lot of money out there to be made. That's why we got to take chances like Rory McIlroy this week.
I think my biggest takeaway from tonight's show though was Julian Edlow is in on Tiger Woods to miss the cut, Mr. Negativity.
Yeah, there's a lot of people seem to be jumping on this Tiger bandwagon. Again, I'm not expecting him to compete, but I don't know, man. Like, I mean, minus 115 for a missed cut. Like, it's not. Yeah, need a little bit more than that. I mean, come on.
Right.
Anyways,
right.
leave it at that.
But I think that's Julian looking at the line, being like, I'm a sharp when it comes to my one golf pick. I think this is sharp, as opposed to Tigers plus 4,000 to win the event. Like, don't take the cheese, which our gut reaction last week when we were here on Monday, when we had the reporting about Woods, was don't bet Tiger Woods. Just don't be silly. But you know what? You can do what you want at the end of the day. So, I want to thank Julian Edlow as well for joining us. He is, I'll tell you what he is on. He is on the over 151.5 points tonight, which he's kind of swayed me on that one. And we're both in on Kansas first half, minus 2.5 tonight. We don't like full game. Okay. Kansas first half. That's who's playing, Jeff, not UNLV, UNC, North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and Kansas. Kansas is favored by 4 points for the national championship in men's college basketball. All right, that's it. Thanks to Eamon and Tom behind the scenes. They handled the baton passing from one analyst to the other. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So, and we will not give chicken takes, which, speaking of chicken, it's starting to get dark here on the East Coast. So I need to go outside and have daylight to give the chicken some life on the grill. So thanks for joining us, everybody. Join us on the Sweat tomorrow at 11 o'clock and the Slate every weekday at 5 p.m. Eastern time. We'll talk to you next time.
R.I.P. Glash's chicken.